Last time, we named a mechanism. We looked at a retired educator in a quiet suburb of Chicago, a man who had spent his career in classrooms, who coached kids, who showed up for his community, a man who had not run for anything, had not campaigned for anything, had not asked for a single thing except to be left alone in his retirement. And then his brother became the Pope, and the call came anyway. We called that stochastic pressure or terrorism, the ecosystem that doesn't require orders. You name a target out loud, or you let someone else name it, and the machinery does the rest. No coordination, no signature, just consequence. Today, we're going to watch that mechanism work. Not once. Across decades. The soft target. There's a logic to this that is worth understanding. When someone in power, real power, visible power, becomes a problem for other people in power, there is a calculation. A direct confrontation has costs. It draws attention. It invites scrutiny of the person doing the confronting. It can backfire. So you look for a pressure point. You look for someone adjacent to the target, someone without security detail, without a press secretary, without a communications team, without the institutional armor that public life provides. You look for the person they love. A soft target is chosen for two reasons. First, the damage is real. People in power will absorb a great deal of personal attack. They are prepared for it. They expect it. But the threat to someone they love, a child, a sibling, a parent, that lands differently. That is designed to land differently. Second, the accountability is diffuse. No one gives an order. No one signs their name to it. The damage happens through the ecosystem, through the people who see the name, the address, the photograph, and who act on their own. Plausible deniability isn't a byproduct of this tactic. It's the point. 2000, Bridget. John McCain had just won the New Hampshire primary. He was the front runner. Then came South Carolina. Phone calls started, flyers circulated, and a push-poll, a political instrument designed not to measure opinion, but to shape it, began moving through the state, asking voters a question. The question was about McCain's daughter. The McCains had adopted Bridget from Mother Teresa's orphanage. She was a sick baby. Cindy McCain had visited, decided she couldn't leave without her, and brought her home for medical treatment. The family adopted her shortly after. She had darker skin than the other McCain children. That was sufficient. The push poll asked voters whether they would be more or less likely to support John McCain if they knew he had fathered an illegitimate black child. There was no such child. There was a 9-year-old girl who had been adopted out of love and brought into a family. But a push poll doesn't need truth. It only needs the question to exist. Years later, Bridget McCain, then 16, Googled herself. That is how she learned what had been done to her. John McCain said, "I believe there is a special place in hell for people like those." She was 9 years old. She had not chosen public life. Her parents chose public life. She had only chosen to love her family. That was sufficient. 2024. Gus. Tim Walz accepted the Democratic vice presidential nomination. His family was in the arena. His son Gus, 17 years old, neurodivergent, diagnosed with a nonverbal learning disorder, ADHD, and an anxiety disorder, stood in the crowd watching his father speak. When Walz addressed his family directly, "Hope, Gus, and Gwen, you are my entire world, and I love you." Gus stood up, pointed at his father. He sobbed. He shouted, "That's my dad!" The moment went viral. Conservative commentator Ann Coulter posted to X, "Talk about weird." Conservative radio host Jay Weber called the moment embarrassing for both father and son. A Trump delegate described it as puffy beta male behavior. And then the machinery moved. The DNC footage was recut, shared out of context. The narrative that circulated? Tim Walz was abusing his son on national television, deliberately, in front of millions of people. The evidence? A brief moment in which Walz guided Gus around a teleprompter stand. Snopes issued a fact check. The abuse narrative was false. It spread anyway. Then came Storm 1516, a Russian disinformation group later identified by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. They circulated a deep fake video, a fabricated claim that a former student said Walz had abused him. U.S. intelligence officials confirmed the content was manipulated. Analysts identified the markers. The account was deactivated after the narrative gained traction. It had already done its work. That was sufficient. 2026. John. We've been here before. Robert Prevost spent decades in religious service. His brother John retired to the suburbs, became an educator, became part of a community, coached kids, did not run for anything. Then Robert Prevost was elected Pope Leo XIV, and the bomb threat came. A retired educator in a quiet neighborhood in New Lenox, Illinois. He had not chosen any of this. His brother's elevation was sufficient. There is academic language for what we have just documented. It's called stochastic pressure or stochastic terrorism. Sourced, defined, peer-reviewed, it describes an environment in which generalized incitement produces specific, unpredictable acts of harm. No direct order, no traceable command. The ecosystem does the work. What we're looking at across these cases is that mechanism applied not to the person in power, but to the people that person loves. A child, a teenager, a retired sibling. 3 different targets, 3 different decades, the same play. I want to be clear about what I am and am not telling you. I am not telling you that these 3 cases were coordinated. I am not telling you that the people involved were in contact with each other. I am not telling you that anyone issued an order. I am telling you what the sequences look like, who had power, who the adjacent person was, what happened to the adjacent person, and whether the primary target under that pressure changed course. That last question, whether the target changed course, is something we're going to look at very carefully in the next episode. You don't have to believe in a conspiracy to recognize a pattern. The pattern is documented. The timeline is verifiable. The playbook does not change because it doesn't need to. It works. I said something at the end of last episode that I want you to hold on to for a minute. I am not giving you anything you don't already have. The ability to look at a sequence, to see who was targeted, to ask what came before, to notice who changed course and why. You have always had that. What this series is doing is giving it a frame. The people who design these pressure campaigns are counting on one thing: that you won't look. That the noise will be loud enough, that the names will be private enough, that the sequence will be fast enough that you won't stop to ask, what happened right before this became the story? Next time on Look Again, we're going to follow the target, not the family, the person in power themselves. We're going to look at what happens when the investigation becomes the punishment, when the allegation becomes the outcome. When you don't have to win in court, you only have to wait. I'm Sera Grey. This is Ethos Trek. Educational, informational, no spin. Look again. Inform, think, act.